Have you ever looked at a football field and just seen a big green rectangle with a bunch of random lines and numbers? Well, don't worry, you are not alone. But we are going to fix that, right here, right now. In just a couple of minutes, you're going to understand the gridiron in a whole new way. Let's do this.
So, why does any of this even matter? Because it's all about one thing: field position. I mean, look at this. On one side, a team has the ball, but they've got a massive 80-yard mountain to climb. On the other side, they're basically knocking on the door, just 20 yards away from scoring. Where the ball is on that field changes absolutely everything, and learning to read that map is step one to really understanding football strategy.
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. Let's build our knowledge from the ground up, starting with the full size of this battlefield. From the back wall of one end zone all the way to the back wall of the other, a standard American football field is a full 120 yards long. And here's how that breaks down. It's actually really simple. You've got the main playing field, which is that big 100-yard stretch where most of the action goes down, and then you have a 10-yard scoring area at each end. That's called the end zone. So you got 10 plus 100 plus 10, 120 yards. Easy enough, right?
All right, we've got the size down. Now let's get into what might be the most confusing part for anybody just starting out. What in the world do all those numbers painted on the grass actually mean?
This is the big mystery, isn't it? I mean, if the field is 100 yards long, why don't the numbers just, go up from 10 to 100? Why do they climb up to 50 and then start counting backwards? It seems totally weird, but believe me, there's a really simple and actually brilliant reason for it. And here it is, the one simple secret that unlocks the whole thing. The numbers aren't counting up the field. They are always counting down to the closest end zone. That's the golden rule. No matter where you are on the field, the big numbers are telling you exactly how far you have to go to score.
And that is why there are 2 of every yard marker except for the 50. Being on your own 30-yard line, well, that means you're in for a long 70-yard march. But being on your opponent's 30-yard line, now you're in business, only 30 yards away from 6 points. It's the same number on the field, but it means 2 completely different things in the game.
So the line that splits the field in half is midfield. That's the 50-yard line. It's the only number you only see once. It's kind of like the line in the sand. Once you cross that 50, you are officially in enemy territory, and all those yard markers start counting down toward their goal line.
Okay, so we know how to read the map now. Let's zoom in on the specific spots where games are really won and lost.
Now, before we talk about scoring, we have to talk about something you can't actually see. It's called the goal line plane. I want you to imagine that the goal line isn't just a stripe of white paint on the grass. Instead, imagine it's an invisible wall that shoots straight up into the sky. This is a super important idea for understanding what a touchdown really is.
And here's the key. A player does not need to get his whole body into the end zone. Not at all. All that has to happen is for any part of the football, even just the very tip of it, to break that invisible wall. The second that happens, it's a touchdown. Instantly. Game over. Well, play over. That's why you always see players desperately reaching the ball out over the line as they're getting tackled.
All right, let's lock in on another really important number, 20. This number signals a very specific, high-stakes part of the field. And that area is called the red zone. Once the offense gets the ball inside their opponent's 20-yard line, they have officially entered the red zone. And no, the field isn't painted red or anything. Commentators call it that because when you get that close, everything changes. The field feels smaller, the defense gets tougher, and the pressure is just massive. The chances of scoring go way, way up, and everybody watching is on the edge of their seat.
So what about all those little tiny lines in the middle of the field? Those are the hash marks. And their main job is actually pretty simple. They just keep the game from getting stuck too far over on one side. So if a player runs out of bounds way over on the sideline, they don't start the next play from that awkward spot. The ref just moved the ball into the closest hash mark. It keeps the game centered and fair for the offense. All right, let's do a super quick recap. Your cheat sheet. The whole field is 120 yards long. The numbers? They always show you how far you have to go to the closest goal line. The 50-yard line, that's midfield, and it splits the field in 2. Remember, the goal line is an invisible plane, and breaking it with the ball is an instant touchdown. And finally, the red zone. That's inside the opponent's 20, where scoring is almost expected.
So I'll leave you with a question. Now that you can read the whole map, from end zone to end zone, where do you think is the single most strategic, most powerful spot on the entire field to have the football? Something to chew on the next time you're watching a game.